Throughout the history of Super-Earth's quest for widespread democracy, countless battles have been fought across hundreds of planets. However, one planet in particular has risen above the rest to become the most infamous in the galaxy, Malevelon Creek. Let's take a closer look at the planet, its history, and honor the Helldivers who helped shape its future. Located in the Severin sector, and often referred to as the Creek, this unassuming planet quickly became the most treacherous of the original Western Front. The Creek features thick jungle vegetation, large bodies of water, and frequent ion storms. Each of these attributes provided unique challenges for the SEAF that were not found on other planets at the time. The dense jungle restricts visibility, making movement difficult and drastically increases chances of automaton ambushes on unsuspecting squads. In addition, the large bodies of water allow automaton patrols to utilize choke points that have proved to be difficult for some Helldivers to combat. On top of this, ion storms frequently bombard the planet, restricting communications with any orbiting superdestroyers, thus limiting the use of crucial stratagems needed on the planet's surface. Super-Earth forces were initially successful in taking control of the Creek, but all that changed on February 8, 2184. Considered the start of the First Great Battle, small-scale conflicts between the SEAF and automaton forces broke out early in the day. To combat this new outbreak of automatons, Super-Earth enacted the usual strategy of mass deployments onto the planet's surface, but this proved largely ineffective due to the aforementioned ion storms and thick vegetation. The Helldivers thus engaged in large-scale napalm barrages in an attempt to reduce the jungle cover and limit the automaton's strategic advantage. This tactic allowed for some leeway for already deployed forces, but heavy losses remained consistent. Struggling to deal with the situation, Super-Earth decided to introduce a recruitment drive known as Fight for the Creek, a mass call to arms for citizens to sign up and help purge the planet of the ever-increasing automaton threat. Soon thereafter, the Ministry of Truth reported a 12% increase in enlistments as citizens stepped up to help with the liberation of the Creek. Initially, these efforts seemed to be successful in pushing back the bots. However, a large-scale automaton counter-offensive was then launched on February 27, 2184. This attack was so effective that it resulted in the fall of Malevelon Creek as well as the entire Severin sector being lost to the automatons. At the same time, two strategically important planets, Draupnir and Mantis, were also lost, effectively closing off all access to the Creek. While this was seen as a huge defeat for Super-Earth, small pockets of superdestroyers remained in orbit around the besieged planet and continued the fight. These remaining Helldivers continued to fight on the fallen planet and quickly became known as the Creekers. Among these Creekers was a faction known as the First Helldiver Honor Guard. These brave soldiers, led by Death Captain Koscheski, were some of the first to regularly fight, as well as train new recruits on the Creek before its restrictions. The First Helldiver Honor Guard participated in every major order leading up to the fall of the Creek, and continued battling throughout the entirety of the upcoming events. Being part of the Creekers legend became a large portion of the Honor Guard's story, which was reflected in direct quotes from the group.
"We were literally behind enemy lines and up shit creek without a paddle. We were left behind by High Command during the panic, and thus became one of the first squads on the planet at the time. It became our goal to extract the last civilians on the final transport off planet."
This was in fact a goal the First Helldiver Honor Guard was able to achieve, successfully completing every mission that was available to them. The Second Battle of Malevelon Creek took place between February 28th and April 1st, 2184. The Creekers who remained on planet or in orbit seemingly found success while resisting automaton forces by engaging in small-scale sieges on bot installations. Honor Guard members were crucial during this time in the conflict, fending off countless waves of automatons and holding their ground despite the enormous pressure the clankers continued to apply to them.
"We did a lot of things on the Creek. From that time we dropped in a lake and fought what was effectively a whole automaton army over the course of 30 minutes, to the time we dropped 4 destroyers worth of eagle strikes and destruction on a singular Hulk VIP, all as a final honor to our time on Malevelon Creek during its fall."
Marshal Warshark 2356. Success seemed certain until automaton forces launched yet another counterattack, thus preventing the SEAF from advancing any further. High Command reported countless lives lost with little to no gains on the front line. The Creek had become nothing short of a bloodbath, with Helldivers and super citizens falling in their droves as they struggled to hold back the mechanized socialist tyranny of the bots. During this time, the Creekers were able to leak extremely gruesome details of the slaughter to High Command, that severed heads and mutilated bodies were being put on display as trophies at many automaton bases, taunting those who still remained with promises of a brutal and vicious end. There were also multiple reports of bot death camps where SEAF personnel were being mutilated, dismembered, and eventually killed after hours of slow, relentless torture. The evils of the automatons truly know no limits. Naturally, this resulted in the Ministry of Truth releasing a statement that the automatons are incapable of morality and empathy, and that under no circumstances should mercy be given to these socialist monsters. Many Creekers, including the First Honor Guard, used this information as as motivation to continue their fight, evolving their tactics to keep up with the bots' aggression and inhumanity.
The automatons may be a menace, but baiting their hordes into inopportune spots is their downfall. Stand your ground, but know when to pull back. Reassess, then throw CAS stratagems and traps. Disengage if under too much suppressive fire, and destroy the most threatening groups near you. Once that is done, relocate and deal with objectives.
Death Captain Cephas. At the same time the Creekers and the 1st Honor Guard struggled to fight off automaton forces on Malevelon Creek, battles were being waged by the SCAF on 2 nearby planets, namely Draupnir and Mantis. Thousands of super destroyers engaged both planets in an attempt to reopen the access way to the creek and provide crucial assistance to those who remained on the embattled planet. Initial frontline communications to High Command from Mantis and Draupnir reported heavy automaton losses as they continued their relentless assault against the SCAF. Thus the fight to reopen the Severance sector continued with little to no progress all the way until March 4th, 2184. Eventually, after much effort, the Helldivers were able to retake Mantis, finally providing potential access to Malevelon Creek. Unfortunately for those who remained on the creek, the extreme losses suffered and slow progress in retaking Mantis caused Super Earth High Command to reassign personnel to aid the SCAF attempting to retake Draupnir instead of pushing directly onto Malevelon Creek. However, shortly after this reassignment to Draupnir, the planet was successfully liberated, allowing for reliable access to the creek for the first time since its initial loss. Immediately following the recapture of Draupnir, High Command issued a major order to the SCAF to eliminate the automaton threat on Malevelon Creek. With the creek now fully accessible, super destroyers executed FTL jumps from across the galaxy, flocking to the planet to provide reinforcements to the remaining creekers who continued to hold out to the best of their ability. Finally having the aid they so sorely needed, the creekers and SCAF engaged in a large-scale offensive to retake the planet, hurling their full might into what was to be one of the most monumental endeavors in Super Earth's history. The Helldivers proceeded to bombard the planet with massive amounts of reinforcements and stratagems, doing their very best to destroy the bots' infrastructure and remove their strategic advantage at any cost. Upon analyzing casualties, High Command reported that losses during these engagements were in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, and were more than double that of the first and third battles combined. Regardless, the overwhelming number of Helldivers were eventually successful in pushing through enemy lines and retaking key positions on the planet's surface. Finally, on April 2nd, 2184, after what seemed to be an endless number of grueling engagements, it appeared that victory had been attained, and celebrations broke out across the planet. But sadly, those celebrations were short-lived, as only a few hours after the offensive's initial success, the third and final battle for Malevelon Creek began. While the Helldivers reveled in the temporary success of retaking the creek, the automatons launched what appeared to be a last-ditch effort to regain control of the planet. Initially thought to be just another lackluster counter-offensive, the SCAF soon realized that the bots had an ace up their sleeve. The Clankers introduced new potent weapons of war in the form of aerial gunships and colossal factory striders. These bot units proved to be extremely difficult to deal with, and many Helldivers forfeited their lives attempting to fight back against the now augmented automaton forces. As most of you are now well aware, aerial gunships are armed aircraft that scan areas for Helldivers. If detected, they use a turret mounted on their undercarriage and fire rockets to annihilate any target they engage. To make matters worse, these units often patrol in groups of 3, making eliminating them a team effort. Then factory striders, often referred to as walkers, are giant heavily armored vehicles equipped with dual miniguns located underneath their cockpit, as well as a large top-mounted heavy cannon. In addition, these walking terrors are able to fabricate automaton devastators, making them one of the biggest threats on the battlefield. The fact of the matter is that these new units took most Helldivers completely by surprise and provided greater challenges in keeping the bots at bay. With a significant increase in the number of automaton forces and weaponry arriving on the planet, High Command had no choice but to issue an immediate evacuation order for all civilians. The Helldivers were thus instructed to deploy immediately in order to assist with providing cover while super citizens were rushed off the planet. As evacuation procedures commenced, the Helldivers found themselves pitted against the augmented bot forces, risking life and super limb to achieve all mission objectives. Finally, after 9 hours of relentless, brutal fighting, the Helldivers were able to successfully repel the automaton offensive. On April 3rd, 2184, Malevelon Creek was completely purged of the automaton threat. The sounds of explosions, gunfire, and rocket barrages no longer filled the air, but the smell of blood and burning oil lingered for days after the final conflict ended. The The president of Super Earth subsequently issued a decree recognizing April 3rd as Malevelon Creek Memorial Day. Commemorative capes were then gifted to all active Helldivers, honoring those who fell throughout the conflicts on the creek. 2 super destroyers were also assigned by High Command to remain in constant orbit around Malevelon Creek, acting as a memorial and guard of honor for the Helldivers who gave their lives fighting for democracy. All things considered, Malevelon Creek will forever remain as one of, if not the most treacherous campaigns in Super Earth's history. The events that took place live on through the personal accounts of the Creekers and first Helldiver honor guard who experienced it all firsthand.
They say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. In Malevelon Creek, we tested that theory daily.
Space Chief Prime Disappointed Dunsky.
The day the Death Captain fell was the day we rallied and fought to the end on that forsaken planet, spilled oil to the last drop of our blood.
Chief Wolfrange.
The creek fell before the guard did.
Technician X.
I remember the fall of the creek, and I don't regret what we did one bit. We stood our ground when all had abandoned us, and secured our objectives, saved everyone we could. Too bad we couldn't save ourselves. But honestly, I wouldn't have had it any other way. Fighting side by side till the bitter end with those you've grown to respect, giving one last liberty-sized middle finger to the Automaton Supreme Commander Joel.
Death Captain Koscheski. It's testimonies like these that ensure the creek will go down in history as the stuff of legends. It also serves as a beacon and prescient reminder of what can be achieved when Super Earth's brave citizens truly devote themselves to freedom and democracy. And with that, we end another Super Earth history broadcast from the SES. So what do you think caused the automatons to be so aggressive in capturing Malevelon Creek in the first place? And do you think they will ever try it again? Be sure to let us know down below. And if any of you loyal citizens experienced the battle for the creek firsthand, relive those epic and tragic events by telling us your story in the comments section. As always, anyone expressing controversial ideas will have their activities immediately reported to the relevant authorities. On behalf of the Ministry of Truth and Super Earth High Command, this is the SES, signing off.